It's recording.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to cut all that out. Actually, it's probably not going to happen. All right. Hello. Welcome to episode 3 of Shit I Make My Family Watch, a podcast where I make my family and friends watch crappy horror and sci-fi movies so you don't have to. I'm your host, Desiree, and join me this week is special guest author Dev Solovey. Welcome.
Hey, what's up?
In this podcast, we'll give you a detailed breakdown of the storyline of this piece of crap as best we can, and then we'll rate these movies on my shit scale of 1 to 5, 1 being a little shitty, 5 being the worst pile of crap you've ever seen in your life. So, what did you think of today's pile of crap, House of the Dead?
Let me tell you, that was the most fun I've had watching a movie in a long time. It sucked like really bad, but it sucked so bad that it was funny. You know what I mean? It's one of them good bad films. But the reason I say that is because it's been a very long time since I have laughed so hard at a scene in a movie that I've had to pause to finish laughing. And I had to do that, I want to say, like 2 or 3 times the first time I watched this. It's that kind of bad. I should say I'm a connoisseur of shit, so just...
Well, I thought it was funny, but I think I took it the first half. They were like, I thought he was trying to be serious about it, so I kept like it was campy, but it didn't seem like a purposeful campy at first. Yeah. And then as I got into it, I was like, maybe he's doing this intentionally, and I'm still not sure. We've gotten all the way through it, and
I've done a lot of looking into Uwe Boll as a director. The film we watched today is, of course, House of the Dead, directed by Uwe Boll. So I'm going to give you a background of why the film is the way it is. it's pretty gnarly. It gets pretty gnarly. So Uwe Boll is a German guy. And there used to be this thing in Germany where you could get a tax break if you filmed in Germany. It was like for the arts, to promote the arts in Germany. Okay. And rich folks in Germany found out that they could get around paying their taxes by making films in Germany. So they would get guys like Uwe Boll, and then they would contact Hollywood or whatever and buy a property from them for cheap, like a video game, for example, and then have them make a shitty movie out of it as a tax shelter. So Uwe Boll isn't really trying particularly hard to make something good or to even be respectful to the material necessarily. I will say, having watched interviews of the guy, a lot of these characters talk the way he talks, and sometimes that's why the dialogue is so baffling.
Because it can be writing the script too.
Oh, like absolutely. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, for sure. He's a big part of the creative process, because the thing about Uwe Boll too is that he does want to make movies, and he likes movies. He likes talking about film. He has a lot of hot takes about films, as if you ever read his Letterboxd reviews. His Letterboxd reviews. He'll just go on and he'll either rate it 0.5 star or 5 stars. He'll be like, oh, this movie's fucking garbage. Or he'll go on his movie and he'll be like, oh, the director is so sexy and this movie's so great and it's got more explosions in it than Michael Bay's films, so clearly it's superior, like all this stuff. But yeah, like a lot of the characters talk the way he would. There's this one scene in particular where one character shouts at Captain Kirk, shoot it. And the captain goes, what do you think I'm trying to do, you fucking moron? That's one crack. And that is the way Uwe Boll talks. And there are, if you're like me and you spend time looking into this trashy stuff on the internet, like some of the dialogue really sounds like stuff you would say. So, yeah, I think he had a pretty heavy hand in the film itself.
Well, if we didn't already say it, we are going to end up spoiling this movie for you as we give you a rundown of the plot. So you've got a few seconds to shut it off if you'd like to watch it for yourself. But I still think you should listen and watch it anyway, just so you know, because this was like next level tier of bullshit. So... And I really wish I would have taken notes this time just for their names, but it almost felt like every single person in the first 20 minutes of the film was a throwaway character.
Yeah.
Kind of. Like most of them end up dying, but I know the narrator starts telling you about his group of friends who he, because of his mistakes, end up dying at the end. And you're sort of following them around as they try to get to an island in the San Juans. And I just like to add, I live in Washington, so I'm familiar with the San Juans and all that. And I was like, who wants to throw a rave outside in the San Juan Islands? It's like pouring rain constantly. It's 50 degrees. It's windy. There's no sand. Like, it's not an appeasing spot for a rave. But
I also gotta say, just the part at the beginning where it's like the narration and it shoots to Greg and Simon, and they're like, I don't know, smashing bottles for no reason or something, and then it's freeze frames and goes great, whoosh, Greg and Simon.
It was almost like a teenage boy making his own film, but this man is an adult and has like a 13-year-old boy to make his own movie, and this is what it turned out like.
You read my mind. Like, that's literally what I put in my notes. I put in my notes, this film was made by Beavis and Butthead. It was made by like, it's like, like Uwe Boll is the kind of guy where like he turned 13 and he was just like, well, this is my peak self. I'm never going to mature after this. And then all of his movies are just like, if you gave a 13-year-old boy a budget of $5 million and told him to just put whatever the hell he wanted in it. Like, that's what this is.
That's my kids were down for probably the first one of them went to bed like immediately, but my 17-year-old loved all the 90s clothes she was seeing in there, like the 2000s, because she's 17. And immediately boobs, and she's like, what are you watching? And I was like, it's this. I don't know what to tell you. They need the boobs to get you through to the next scene. Like, so many boob shots in the first 20 minutes. I mean, but that's, I mean, they're following that slasher trope, sort of.
So, but also, like, you can tell it's kind of a George Lucas golden bikini type of thing. Like, especially the part where they're on the beach and, like, Matt and that other girl, she goes swimming and Matt gets, I don't know, blue balls or something. So he's just, like, lying there on the beach. And then she jumps in the water, she starts swimming, she takes her top off. You get plenty of frontal shots with so that, you know, Uwe Boll gets to see the titty. Yeah. Exactly. And then she gets out of the water. Nothing happens. So, like, there was no point.
Also, like to add, absolutely nobody around here is swimming in those oceans butt naked and then just walking down the beach without putting clothes on. It is fucking freezing. Like, that's not going to happen. But I don't even know if they actually filmed here. I'm guessing they didn't, because you mentioned they get a tax break for filming in Germany.
It's possible they have, like, it's possible they filmed parts of it in Germany and parts of it in the San Juans, because they can film it in multiple areas.
They were in the San Juans, but now I'm going to have to look before I say that. So
if it didn't look like the San Juans, then it probably wasn't. So
they were very specific about their shots. It was like two very specific pieces of the river or whatever water body they were using, and some trees, and then, you know, the shitty building they find. But I'm going to dig into that, because this whole thing, as they keep trying to pitch it back to the San Juans, made me really angry, and it was distracting because I hyperfixate on one stupid point. So back to the plot. The group of his friends, I think his name's Rudy, the narrator.
Yeah, Rudy. Rudy's the main guy, and then there's Greg, who I keep accidentally calling Chris in my notes because he's so bland. Simon, who's the model. There's Karma, who's the girl with the denim jacket, the black girl who's like hitting on Simon, but he's interested in Alicia. And then there's Cynthia, who's the bimbo who dies first.
Right. Yeah, I didn't understand her role in this, but so those guys are all trying to get to the rave. They show up 15 minutes late and they miss the boat. So immediately they go to the next boat they see that might have people on it and be like, we want to charter you. And it's Captain Kirk. I don't remember what you said his first name was. And then his trusty
assistant. Yeah.
What's that?
His assistant sailor.
I don't know what his role was supposed to be. He never calls him any boat terms on there, but he called him Salish. And literally, Salish. I could have stopped right there and just like shot myself, because it is Salish. It is a group of people. It is also a sea, like in this area, and it's not Salish. Why would that be the first thing you would think? Why wouldn't you even just look? I don't ask somebody in the area. It's Salish. So continually he's calling this guy Salish, and I'm just done like immediately
Yeah.
with this whole thing. But his fisherman Gordon's outfit, like the entire movie, and he's always walking around with a hook and doing nothing with it.
That guy really, he really got to me. That was another one of the places where I had to pause the movie because he looked so familiar, and I was going insane trying to
He's
figure out
in
what I
so
knew.
much.
Yeah, at
Adam
first I thought
Sandler
he
movie.
was Gary Granger from Adam's Family Values, the camp counselor, but he wasn't. So I was looking, and turns out he was, in the Grinch, how the mayor has his pet twink. That was the same guy.
Oh,
It was the
I
same
know he's
guy.
in Adam Sandler movies. I hadn't seen that. I hadn't put the two of those together, but now
Yeah,
that
no,
is
it
on.
took some Googling. It took some
Yeah.
Googling.
Which is interesting because he's, a fairly like deep Hollywood comedic actor picked
Yeah.
for whatever this was. And I like the guy who played the captain.
Oh, he was good, yeah.
Because he's normally very serious in like war movies and stuff. So this was a very strange segue for him.
Yeah, I couldn't tell what his accent was either. He kind of sounded like Jarl Balgruuf from Skyrim. You know what I mean? Like just some sort of
don't know what
weird.
it was supposed to be. Maybe he's German. I had to look at the actor because I think he does actually have an accent in real life. It just doesn't sound like what he was doing in there.
Yeah. I don't know.
So
Maybe he is Swedish because I was picking up like mad Skyrim vibes. So
maybe.
Yeah.
Salish. Anyway, so the group of friends ends up getting them to take them all the way out to this San Juan Island, but it helps that at the same time I don't know if she was like a customs officer or the boat harbor master. I didn't catch that part. Something to do with boats, and they weren't supposed to leave because she wanted to get on and take a look at it. But they start pursuing them, and the boat goes away, and then they find this island, which what is it? Island of the Dead, right?
Yeah, Isla de Morte, which is not correct. As someone who lives near the border, it would be, if it were in Spanish, Isla de Muerte, right?
That's what I thought, because it's also in Jurassic Park.
Yeah. I will say also that scene where they're sailing to the island sticks out in my mind just because the dialogue is distractingly horny. Like, it's really weird the way the captain talks about that, what is it, Marshall gal, something or other, Coast Guard. I don't know what she's from. But
Very
he says,
long.
like, oh, she's been wet for me for years, stuff like that. It's
Well,
really
he's like
gross.
that the whole movie with her. Like, and you never really find out why.
No.
I don't know. So I would say there's not much that really moves the story along happening on the boat. One of the guys gets seasick all over his girlfriend, and she magically cleans that shit off in the sink in like 5 minutes, puts it back on, fresh, ready to go. And I was like, that is amazing. I wish
Salish,
I could do that.
Salish gives her a trinket. It's like a necklace with a cross on it.
Yeah.
And it never comes up again.
She puts it down. She's topless too, and he just walks in and hands her
she
across.
just takes off the top for no reason. Yeah,
this is gonna save you. Nobody's mad about the nipples hanging out, and then she just sets it down, and they're done. Like,
that's like, what was the point?
Yeah, didn't help him any. So they arrive at the island, and they can't find any of the people at the rave. They're kind of looking around, and they see the rave set up. And the funny part I saw was the big Sega sign in the back of the rave. And it took me a while because I didn't know that it was a Sega game. I had to go look that up, but I was like, why is there Sega at a rave? But that makes sense. It's from the game. And actually, after reading all of this, I would like to play the game because it looks way more fun than this movie was, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like some of those washes were scenes from the game, right? It seemed like they just put
they just cut scenes from the video game into the movie, and it took you about 3 times to figure out what it was because it was very quick, like just a flash, and you're like, what was that supposed to be? And it's the zombie killing or whatever it is. And
the credits actually had a little bit of that too, where they it looked like they had taken clips of the game and then put them through every single Photoshop filter. It looked really bad.
And I think in the beginning, it's one of the voiceovers from the games.
Yeah. They also had
techno colors.
Yeah, the techno music. Yeah. Woof.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember. They get to the rave. They can't find anybody, but they find all the stuff set up. So they start drinking and start splitting off for their activities.
Yeah.
And immediately the blonde girl, Cynthia, and I don't remember
Yeah.
her boyfriend, but he's got really close together eyes, and it was driving me crazy.
Greg. Yeah, Greg.
Like, we were like so close together, and that's all I could stare at as he's talking. I could not hear a word he was saying. I was just staring at his eyeballs.
I have a lot to say about Greg.
You're a fan, huh? So they get into this, it's got all this inflatable furniture, which I haven't seen since like early 2000s. And my 17-year-old's like, that's really cool stuff in there. And I'm like, okay, but it's furry, first of all. And then I don't remember why he leaves. She's in there by herself. Something's hanging out outside making zombie noises, comes in and gets her. That's kind of the cut scene, the first death, if you will.
Well, what happens is they go in there and they're about to have sex because this movie is just terribly horny, and then he comes early, like before they can even take anything off, and so he pretends and he says like, I gotta go take a piss, and so he goes into the porta potty and leaves her there.
I thought he really had to pee.
It seemed like the dialogue was implying that he was pretending that he had to piss in order to cover up the fact that he's a Minuteman, but she was just going like, it's okay, like it happens to a lot of men. Or
I guess I missed that part. I should have paid closer attention, but
I watched it twice with subtitles on, and this is just, I'm weird when I watch movies. Like,
I don't recall how it jumps from, and I think it's because I had to stop to do laundry at some point, how it jumps from Cynthia's first death to sort of like all of the zombies coming at them. I know that they find a house at some point, but
let me check what my notes are, because I actually don't remember either. There might not have been a transition.
It might have just been a jump straight over. I know that Cynthia was missing and they were looking for her. And that might have been.
I know it was. It was Alicia. They got to the rave and she's like, I want to figure out where everybody went. And it was Karma and Simon went with her, because Karma was just like, I'm not sticking around with Cynthia and Greg and how weirdly touchy they're being. And Simon's like, well, I'm not going to join in on this either. So they go and join her. And as they're walking out there, they get attacked by zombies. I think that's where it happens. I'm pretty sure. I just watched it.
That sounds right. And then they end up running through, and then they find the house, which is where, once they get inside, they find Rudy and a few other people. My favorite character, Liberty.
Yes, she's one of my favorites.
She's got the America skin suit on and like 70 pigtails, and I was like, that is a terrible. Also, weirdly racist, like little spats in the movie here and there that you're like, whoa, like that's not even cool for 20 years ago.
No.
I didn't think were necessary.
Yeah, no, so it was really, really weird.
So I know that when they're in the house, is that halfway up? Because Jesus Christ, it feels like it is. Like,
we're getting there. I
don't know what. Somehow they briefly look in the basement and find the previous owners, like some of the science experiments, not the devious ones.
Yeah.
And then Salish, Salish goes missing. He goes outside to do something and doesn't come back. And then the captain is, I think, looking off and on for him.
Yeah.
It's kind of fuzzy in there until the zombies start like breaking down doors. And also, consistency of zombified bodies is just non-existent.
No,
like the first ones you see have glowing red eyes, like Ewoks or something, like something out of Star Wars almost. And then you see some with nets on them, and then you see some that are like Stay Puft Marshmallow Mans, and then like slimy. None of them look the same. And I like, and they're not even really zombies, because some of them are being shot in the chest and they just fall over.
Yeah, they did not have anybody. Yeah, they didn't have anybody to choreograph any of that. You can tell, because some of those extras are just kind of standing there like, and they're like just in this position and they're standing stationary, or they're just kind of like walking weird. No one gave them any direction on what to do. It's like they just handed them a mask and some torn up clothing and they're like, all right, just look spooky, I guess.
And I'm not even sure that they called them zombies a few times, but I don't think that that's what they were going for. I guess it's more
Yeah.
like I know the captain talks about at some point, and I don't remember if this is when they're in the house or if it's when maybe they did it on the boat. He's talking about the gentleman who got kicked out of Spain, right?
Yeah, that's around where I would say the half point is. Yeah, where it's this guy who was banished from Spain, and he for some kind of like experiments that he was doing that were not of God, as the captain of the ship said, and then he just escapes and kills the captain and everybody on the ship.
Yeah,
that guy was like. Yeah, he gave his all in this film, which will never cease to baffle me. Like, he really looked like he was enjoying himself. The rest of this cast looked bored as hell for the most part. But, like, the guy who played Castillo Sermano is his name. He looks like he's having fun. Like, he's meant to be in B movies.
Right. He was pretty... My husband came out right as that guy came on and thought that it was the guy from The Mummy. You know, the guy who played Did you really?
Yeah, I thought so too. And then later I thought he was like, later I thought he was Uwe Boll, like playing the character, because he kind of looks similar. But then I looked it up and it's like, no, it's just some guy who's been in a lot of B movies. Like that's his calling and that's what he does now. But he
was fun. I didn't understand the segue between how he looked as they're showing him sort of escaping and killing that other sea captain, and then how he looked when you see him on the island, like with the stitches and stuff all over his face.
Yeah, really like the way I interpreted that is at the end he starts talking about I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but he's taking parts of people to keep himself immortal. That's kind of what he implies, and so I just assumed the stitches were some sort of visual storytelling device meant to tell us that he's like a stitched together zombie of other people, but he's not really.
They're all the same color.
Yeah, so like I don't know what happened there. Maybe he did like surgery on himself and replaced his brain. I mean, he like had to cut his face open.
It looked like he was trying to make himself like puzzle pieces almost. Like couldn't do tattoos,
maybe
so he just cut off pieces.
Like maybe it's a fashion statement.
Yeah. So I cannot tell you what happened after that point.
Yeah,
like I can get to the end where there's 70,000 fight scenes, but the middle is just like mush.
Yeah, there's a fight scene that goes on for 10 minutes, which in an 88-minute movie is 10% of the movie.
It was so long.
Yeah, it was really, really long. So let me just pull up my notes here. So let's see. I do want to say just about Greg real quick. Like going back to, feeling like this film was made by a 13-year-old, I feel like Greg was his stand-in for like every guy he hates or like all his critics who he hates. Because he's just like, whoa, look at this whiny piss baby. He gets sick on the boat and then he comes early and then he gets covered in shit.
Somehow still makes it most of the way through the movie. Like,
no, I think he makes it like halfway. Yeah, no, he gets killed. He's the second one to get killed because he and Casper go off alone for reasons I forget. And then he gets dragged off and killed by zombies. Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure I wrote it down. It was
like that model.
What?
Except for his eyeballs. He looks too much like that model. I get them confused, but his eyeballs are like,
yeah, I think I think in hindsight he was supposed to be like the comic relief, but the guy is just not a great actor and he's not he doesn't have a comic relief look or delivery really. So it just kind of seems like some guy that's being shit on quite literally for no reason.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. That's another point where I had to pause. Let me tell you how I watch movies. Okay, so I have ADHD and I can't sit still. And so I'll tell you the least insane thing I do first. I talk during movies. I talk nonstop during movies. I riff on them. And when I'm not watching them with other people, I talk to myself. And sometimes I pause to talk to myself. And because I have ADHD, sometimes I forget that I'm watching a movie. And so it can be paused for up to a couple of hours of me just finding other things to do and then realizing, oh, yeah, I was watching a movie. It took me 2 days to watch this. Yeah, it took me 2 days to watch this the first time. And then there was one point where I was just like, this is too fucking funny. I need a snack. But then I didn't have any snacks, so I made waffles.
In the middle of the movie.
In the middle of the movie, yeah. I'm just weird and I can't sit still.
Nice.
But yeah, so I was pulling it up. Gosh, I keep getting sidetracked. I did also voice to text a lot of these notes, so there's going to be some problems in here. Let's see, you can cut this part out probably. Casper and Greg go off alone. Right, the historical cutscene. I'm not sure how Castillo Hermano killed the captain in that scene either. He just kind of grabbed him and put his fist up to his neck, and then it cut away, and there was a scream. I don't know how it happened.
Which captain? The Captain Kirk or the?
No, in the historical, the cutscene.
Oh.
Because yeah,
yeah. He choked him with a chain.
Maybe he did, and I just didn't see it. He might have. But yeah, we cut to Greg and Casper, who are wandering in the woods. Zombies attack them. Of course, Casper, she shoots at them with her rifle, which has like some truly absurd over-the-top muzzle flashes. It was like taking up the whole screen. It's insane. Yeah, she just fucking mows them down. Chris runs away like a little whiny piss baby and gets killed, presumably. And then we see like anytime somebody dies in this film, there's like a freeze sort of 360 shot of them, and then there's like a red filter over the screen. Yeah, it was really weird.
I want to see that again. It's like he saw The Matrix once and was like, "This is the coolest thing ever. Don't ever change anything about this." Yeah. And it was every single character had like multiple of these, and you have to wait around, and then the gunfire or whatever it is they're doing, or they kick something for like every move.
Yeah. That was another one of the places where I had to pause and laugh, but I'll get to it. So you know, Chris dies. There's a wash where it shows more footage from the video game, and then it cuts back to that house that they were boarded up in, which they just left like 20 minutes ago, and they're going back to. But this time they have all these weapons, I guess. Simon's in crisis because his face got melted by zombie vomit, and he thinks his career as a model is over, as an underwear model where his face isn't even going to be showing. Anyway.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. And then Captain Kirk quotes Scarface and reveals his stash of guns. They make a joke about size mattering when they're pulling out the guns, and they're showing them off. And then Kirk and Casper just become the dad and mom of this group briefly. Like they have that vibe. I don't know why. Yeah, sorry. Oof, allergies. So we proceed then at that point to get that gratuitous and insanely long scene. First they're like naming all the weapons and passing them around. They show everybody loading them up in painstaking detail or strapping up. And then I looked at it at the 51-minute mark is when they start shooting zombies. You get that like shot of them all walking in an offensive line, bang, bang, bang with their guns. The music kicks in, and it's this rap song that was very clearly created for the film, but it's very badly recorded and very hard to understand, to the point where even the subtitles, this cracked me up, the subtitles on my version of it just said, "Man singing indistinct." Because even it didn't know. Even it couldn't tell. Yeah. So there's multiple scenes from the actual video game threaded into this big shootout. There's also a lot of like those 360 shots that we were talking about, where it's like showing the one character in slow-mo as zombies are, attacking around them, and the camera goes around them. And this I think they do this with like every single character, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, definitely. But the one that cracked me up the most is the one with Liberty, because with most of them, like it would just do the 1 360. For
Uh-huh.
whatever reason, with her, they chose to do a 720. Like they did it twice.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
to pause it and rewind it to watch it again because it shows her like kicking zombies, and she's like really she's acting as hard as she can. Like she's acting so hard, and she like kicks and she's making this like really effort like strained face, and then it spins
Mhm.
around and she kicks again, like her pigtails are flying in the air. It's what for whatever reason it was hilarious to me, so I had to like pause and rewind and watch it again. um but yeah, that was like in the middle of that. None of their weapons have recoil, of course, and as we talked about, they don't have a choreography director. A lot of the zombies are just standing there awkwardly and get shot, even though they're doing nothing. Um, and towards the end of this big scene, Liberty she gets tackled, she gets taken out, and she starts calling out Rudy's name. Rudy is like the badass bad boy main character or whatever. And he looks so bored. He just looks very like he's just expressionless as this woman is calling out his name in pain. And then, as if I think at this point it was 7 minutes long. This scene now, as if that wasn't enough. Rudy is we kind of zoom in on him as he's getting flashbacks, and it's just the same scene we just watched, but fast forwarded.
Mhm.
So we get it twice.
It was really
Yeah. Now, this shootout ended at 59 minutes. It started at 51. So that's 8 minutes out of an 88-minute movie.
it felt
Which
longer than that, I'm gonna be
it
honest.
felt so long. It felt really long. Um, so, 60-minute mark is finally over. They're inside the house. Casper dies. Her legs get torn off by zombies, I think. And it's
Yeah.
like
He
very
just sort of held her
unemotional.
there, like, "Oh, go ahead, keep finish up," and then pulls her inside, and he's like, "It's all
I
my
know.
fault." And you're like, "Yeah, it is, kinda." Like, you coulda just whoop, like, maybe move, but
Yeah, you literally could have just pulled her in, bud. Anytime you could have done
yeah.
that. Yeah. So Casper has her legs torn off. She bleeds to death. And then Captain Kirk is injured too. This was another like continuity weird thing. There are a couple of weird things. So earlier, Captain Kirk gets bitten by one of the zombies. Doesn't
Mhm.
turn at any point. That just never
They
went
keep pouring
anywhere.
alcohol on it, like, that's gonna help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
We all
Or
know.
another thing that didn't pan out was we talked about the cross necklace, and also there's a point where Rudy steps on a really big spike, like a nail, and there's like a scene where he has to like as he pulls his foot off,
Oh, it's his
and he's just
hand.
fine. Oh, it's his
No,
hand.
he's
Yeah,
got gloves on, and that's the part I thought was weird, and my husband's like, "It's 'cause he was holding an axe, so he needed gloves." And then he just keeps the gloves on the rest of the movie after sticking his like,
yeah,
a nail through his hand. I think that's the only way
yeah,
they could do that scene, is with
yeah.
the
But
glove.
also like he's holding guns and like he's totally fine for the rest of the film. They completely forgot about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is. I'm just gonna be like a flagrant bisexual here, by the way. Like Captain Kirk, something about like I don't know what it is, but something about like seeing just like a really trashy guy who looks like shit fucking sabotages me. Like I love John Constantine for the same reason that like the moment I see Captain Kirk looking like shit with like this huge injury on his leg, I'm like, that's a DILF right there. Why
That is
is
a fun type to have.
I know. Like, why does this sabotage me? Like, when it comes to girls, I'm a basic bro, but when it comes to guys, I have the worst taste.
I've either
Anyway,
been sickly, dying, and angry.
yeah, exactly. Trashy.
Yeah.
Yeah, or like Venom. I love Venom for the same reason. He just looks like shit all the time. I don't know. But yeah. So let's see. Karma tries to reassure Simon, who's like thinking he looks like he's a circus animal, like a freak ever since he got his face melted. And she does
20
so
seconds
by
ago.
making out with him. What now?
I said 20 seconds ago when he got his face melted off, and he's still
Yeah, I
like
know.
every 5 seconds.
Yeah,
Oh, my face.
I will say that's one of my like one of the better bits of dialogue, at least one of the funnier ones for me, was because like this scene is obviously just sexist. Uwe Boll just wanted to put it in there because he wanted to. But Simon says, like after they start making out, he's like, "You're not just doing this to make me feel better, are you?" And she's like, "I'm doing this to make me feel better."
Yeah. Well written. 100% written by a man.
Yeah. No, it totally sucked. I love it. I mean, I hate it, but so it was at that point they were done having their moment. Now it's Rudy and Alicia's turn to have a boring flirty moment, but the way they flirt is by like trauma bonding over Casper's legless body. And they just start like making out randomly.
I forgot she's like sitting there in the background with her legs just off and like
yeah. I know. And then Rudy has to go back to Kirk because I guess his condition, that's the word I was looking for, is getting worse. But like Rudy, he's supposedly like in med school, but they don't know anything about medicine, these people, and they didn't bother looking it up. So anytime he has to like look at someone's injuries, he just kind of like gapes at them. He just kind of looks at them.
He puts alcohol on it. That's like
that's it.
Yeah, some of that
as if just gazing at Simon's face is gonna make his burn disappear. Like, I don't know. It's weird. But yeah, so this is the part at which Alicia brings in like a sort of plot element that never gets brought up again, where she brings in the ship's journal. This was one of the most baffling things to me because so I wrote it down. She said, the ship says Castillo killed the captain, Castillo, the Spanish guy. And the ship's journal says he killed the captain, beached the boat, and then lit it on fire. So why does it say all that in the ship's journal if the ship was set on fire? Like, and the ship's journal would presumably be kept by the captain, who is dead.
Well, so now it's like, the Castillo. He's like, I need a journal. I'm going to take this on land with me and write what I did.
Dear diary, big day.
Right.
Just like, I burned a boat today.
You'll never guess.
Yeah. You'll never guess who I saw at the mall today. Anyway, they search the house at that point. Kirk tells them to search the house for something they can use for more fortification or whatever. They end up in a lab with a whole bunch of like wet specimens in it and like glowing boxes full of blood and like parts of zombies and stuff like that. Basically, they discover that this is the way that Castillo is bringing these zombies to life, as he's mutated the blood somehow that allows for immortality and brings the dead back to life, which Rudy is able to tell by just looking at blood under the microscope. Like, you can just tell that just by looking at it. Like, oh, yes, the DNA strands.
He's a scientist, okay?
Yeah. Or maybe a psychic medium, who knows. So Kirk gets, we switch back to him for some reason. He gets lured outside by the sound of Salish whistling a song. And he goes outside and he sees Salish has turned into a zombie and shoots him and says out loud to nobody, I won't let Salish live like the rest of them. Weird thing to say out loud when you're on your own, but I mean, whatever, you know, not the most baffling to say out loud.
It was going to end up, that guy wasn't a zombie. He was just weird. And he was like trying to get over to his friend and he was just sitting there shooting him. And I was like, oh, okay, plot twist. I like it. But then I guess he really was just a zombie because he didn't look like
so funny.
He was whistling.
Yeah, like
no one can whistle.
Yeah, it was really weird. No, I just also he was just like weird from the beginning, so it was kind of hard to tell for a second that he was a zombie because he's like
punched and all the time and
his character was just okay. Be a weird little freak. Just do that on camera. It'll work. 100%. I promise. No, and then Kirk has his kind of self-sacrifice triumphant moment He goes outside. Rudy sees him. He's like, "No, they're gonna kill you." And Kirk says, "I'm dead already." And then he suicide bombs all the zombies. He lights a stick of dynamite, blows them all up. Lots of explosions. As I mean, Uwe Boll, true to his word, more explosions than Michael Bay. um, so he has his moment. Let's see. At that point, half the cast is dead now. So it's just Karma, Simon, Rudy, and Alicia. They find some gunpowder, but they can't use it without something to ignite it. And Rudy makes a comment like somebody would have to be there to ignite it, and that wouldn't work out. So of course, then some very convenient zombies break through the door. I think they go back to the lab first and then come back. Some convenient zombies break through the door. They like hold down Simon, and he's like, "All right, you guys go." And he sacrifices himself, shoots the gunpowder. Another explosion. Yeehaw! Um, then they end up in these tunnels, which Rudy, who just like magically knows things a lot of the time that are relevant to the plot because it's more convenient for for the writer to have him just magically know things instead of figuring them out. He goes, "Oh yeah, there's smugglers on this island, so they must use these tunnels, which means one of them must go out to one of the beaches somewhere." Just somehow knows this, and I think like looking at it again like for a second time, I think it's based on a level in the video game, because this one was threaded with a lot of scenes from the game that looked like they were in a tunnel. So I think it must have been like a very direct reference to whatever the game was. Yeah, they go through that, and by the end of it, Karma decides to sacrifice herself. She doesn't do so very effectively. She doesn't fight off very many of them, and that's when Castillo jumps out of the dark. The big bad guy, stitches on his face. Whatever.
You see him lurking quite a bit behind the trees, like 17 times the same scene.
Yeah, he's like, there's scenes throughout the movie where he's just kind of lurking through the woods, and he kind of like you see under his hood. But yeah, no, so he jumps out, and they get kidnapped and taken to. Oh no, you know what? It was he comes out disguised as Greg, and they think Greg is alive. Yeah, but he's wearing the hood. Yeah, and so they're like, "Greg, it's you! Oh my god!" And so they follow him, and then it turns out it was just Castillo wearing a mask. He pulls off the mask, and they get tied down, and he's like, "I'm gonna use your organs to make myself immortal," or something like that. One of the most baffling pieces of dialogue is in this scene too. This one cracked me up. It was I had to write it down. So Castillo is over Rudy, who's being held down on this table, and Rudy says, "You created it so that you could be immortal. Why?" And then Castillo says, "To live forever." Like, yeah, that's what immortality is.
Yeah, like I just said that. Yeah, that was so stupid. Oh my god.
I know, it was really dumb.
But the way you delivered it was 100%.
Yeah, he like really put he went balls to the wall on this role and delivered that line like taking it seriously, and like mad props to a guy who can do that, because it would have taken me forever.
I would have been like, "Are you sure we don't want to rephrase this a little bit? It seems a little redundant." But
yeah.
Really his goal, his end game.
No, this guy was very comfortable in this role he was playing. He seemed like he was having a blast. He also like weirdly hits on Alicia, because of course he does, because this movie is fucking sexist as hell. He like licks her at one point. It's really gross.
Yeah. Well, he says, "I've been waiting for you," but you're not really sure if that's like just for a few seconds, or like since she arrived, or like for eternity.
Yeah.
He doesn't ever go any further than just being creepy and licking her and saying that. So you're like, what was the purpose of that?
Yeah, I think he says something like, "I want your flesh," or something like weird and disastrously horny. Yeah. And then they get out of there, because of course they blow it up again using another grenade, and they get out of there, and Alicia sarcastically says, "Isn't it nice to know that somebody wants you for your body?" to Rudy, and Rudy says, "Depends what they want it for."
You didn't get the feeling that guy has ever heard that before, though. Like, he's not a conventionally attractive like main movie character. he was very thin and like long, and it was just very
Yeah,
strange. The only really like, I guess, movie star attractive would be Alicia, and you could tell they tried to sort of like focus on her for quite a bit of the movie, but
yeah.
they definitely picked strange people for these. Like,
Yeah, no, and I looked up some of that guy's filmography too, and it seems like he's mostly in B movies, in kind of similar roles. It seems like, but probably not always, because he wasn't like he said, he just doesn't have the look for this type of role. But more than that, he doesn't have the ability to pull it off. He's not playing it very well. I don't think it's in his comfort zone. It seems like something that like he wants to be the badass main hero of an action film, but he doesn't. I hate to say that he's not a very talented actor because it feels mean, but like he's not very good. Like so, I'm sorry, but he's had a decent career. Good for him. Whatever. Anyway, Rudy beheads Castillo, who's out there fighting them. By the way, this was really the most baffling thing to me because we talked about all those continuity things that Uwe Boll just forgot, right?
mhm.
There's a comment like in the first 5 minutes of the movie, in Rudy's narration where he's talking about Alicia and says like she preferred to learn fencing for some reason. I don't know why. And
Yeah,
then
in the
end of the
beginning.
movie, yeah, end of the movie, it pays off. Like she has a
That's
sword fight with Castillo. So like
I
he
have a
can
bone
pay
to pick with that.
yeah, but like he can pay attention to that. Like he can pay attention to that bit of continuity, but everything else he can ignore.
But he
What?
can't even because in the beginning he was like Rudy was talking about him and Alicia just broke up because she wanted to pursue fencing, and he was like, I just don't understand, which is weird, like to
Yeah,
start your
he
movie
says
out.
it's useless. Yeah, he
But at
says
the
it's
end,
useless.
she's not fencing. She's sword like broadsword fighting. Two
Yeah,
completely different, like not even the same, not even the same movements, not even the same anything. So it wasn't that
no.
like knew it. I don't know what the word is. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just of all things you could pay attention to for continuity's sake. You go like, oh, I don't care about this necklace. I don't care about all these injuries, but I have to explain why she can use a sword. Let me just
I
put
know.
in a little bit of dialogue that's not even like factually accurate. So it's just like,
But I did appreciate how it got to be brought up again because, at least that's the least sexist thing he put in there was this girl
yeah,
could use a sword. That's pretty cool.
right up until she
Incorrect.
got stabbed right in the cleavage. That was,
Perfectly down that shirt. Like,
mhm.
perfect. Good aim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it was intentional. Yeah. So Alicia's somehow still alive, even after. So Castillo gets his head chopped off by Rudy, but the headless body comes, reanimates and starts attacking him. And then Alicia, somehow still alive even after being stabbed, crushes the guy's head under her skull, or under her boot. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, just shatters this guy's skull, and I guess the FBI, the Men in Black, shows up. I don't know. They fly in on
I
a
don't know who they were supposed
helicopter.
to be.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
who they were supposed to be either. And they used just like really sort of like overly militarized language that was just ridiculous sounding. And in the very end, there's more narration from Rudy talking about, oh my God, so many people died. But then you sort of get the reveal implied in his dialogue that, or excuse me, his narration, that he used some of that mutated blood to bring Alicia back to life. And that seems to be a hook for a sequel. And
Please
that's how
God,
the
no.
film ends.
Never. That's bullshit right there. Though like I said, it does make me interested to play the video games because there's more than one I know as I was reading
Yeah.
through. And if I don't mind the plot being like that if it's in a video game versus like it doesn't always translate well to movie. Clearly, this did not translate well at all to movie, I
No.
thought. Um what did you rate this? What's your shit rating? So
My shit
1
right.
is only a little shitty. 5 is the worst piece of absolute crap to walk this earth.
I would say 3.
Okay,
I
solid 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna be generous this time around because even though it sucks, it's funny. And in my
Yes.
opinion, a movie doesn't like the goal is to entertain somebody. And so if it's entertaining an audience, even if not in the way intended, then I think that detracts from the shittiness ultimately. To me, a shitty movie is something that's so awful I can't watch it, or I come away from it feeling angry, or feeling like my time has been wasted.
Yeah.
This one was bad, technically speaking. It was bad in a lot of ways, but it was still an entertaining watch. So that's why I've chosen a three. How about you? How do you
Three,
feel about this?
3 out of 5. I am actually going to go 4 out of 5. And that is because I am a diehard zombie fan.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like if you're going to make a zombie movie, you got to commit to at least
Yeah,
one path of zombie. You know what I mean? Like, is it the
yeah,
bite? Is it science that reanimated them? It can't be everything all at once. And
yeah,
I was so distracted and angry by the different stupid zombies. Like, you can throw as many tits as you want in a movie. Great. Eventually we'll get to the plot. But if your zombies can't, like, you're like, what is that? What is that in the background? Every scene. Like, it was so distracting to me. And my husband actually let me know that we watched this 10 years ago and I didn't remember any of it. He's like, yeah, we've totally seen this before. You were just as mad 10 years ago when you watched it as you are right now. Like, okay, that explains it. So, yes, I say 4 out of 5 shits, and I don't want to watch that again. And I'm going to write it down somewhere so that 10 years from now, I'm not like, hey, let's watch this cool zombie movie I just found. Like,
you
not
gotta
doing
write a
that again.
note. You gotta write a note for yourself somewhere and then hide it somewhere where you just find it randomly a couple years later.
Well, now it's recorded, so I can just scroll back through all the stupid episodes I've done and be
Well,
like,
there you
don't
go.
have to watch that one again. So now we get to get to the fun portion, which I think most of the people will actually be interested in, not this stupid movie we just talked about, is the interview portion. So you are an author. Can you tell us a little bit about some of your work?
Yeah, so I my past work, which you are able to find online, includes a kind of little bit horror comedy, mostly fantasy comedy web comic called Devil Went Down to Vegas. It's about a demon who gets fired from his job in hell and decides to move to Las Vegas, and that's been going on since I want to say like 2019. The new one, we had to reboot it for complicated reasons, but it's up now. It's on hiatus, but it'll be coming back in October. And then I also have an award-winning short story through the Arizona Authors Association through their literary contest last year. Um, in terms of upcoming stuff, I have my debut novella, which is called Fever Dreams, which will be published through Unveiling Nightmares. Yay!
Yay.
Um, yeah, I'm really excited for that one because that one started for a couple of reasons. One, I read a horror book that made me want to write like a little bit more horror because I had already written some other, like I have other manuscripts that I haven't. Oh, you're buffering there.
Oh,
Oh, you're back on. Okay, sorry.
I don't feel
Anyway,
buffery.
but I have, I had read another horror book, and I was like, I kind of want to do something similar. So the story is about a transgender guy who he gets his sister tries to sacrifice him to a dark god, but she doesn't quite finish the job before the police get called. So he's in a medically induced coma while the doctors are trying to piece him back together. And in the meantime, this dark god is putting him through a gauntlet of nightmares to try and make him give up on fighting for his life, because then he'll die and it'll complete the sacrifice. And the story itself is sort of meant to be a metaphor about like the trans moral panic of the modern day. Not just like a deep dive into the main character himself, but also like it's kind of a metaphor for the horrors you sort of face as a trans person in the world in this day and age, and how you kind of have to keep on living. That's your only form of protest, because if you die, that's how they win.
Mhm.
So that's kind of what the story is about, and it comes out on August 2nd, which I'm excited
That's
for.
awesome. It sounds really good. I can't
Thank
wait to
you.
read that. Okay, what is your favorite shitty movie? Tell us what you love about
John
it.
dies at the end. John dies at the end. It's
I
my
don't think
favorite.
that's shitty. Really? That's a good movie though.
It's not a shitty movie. It's a good movie. I say it's my favorite shitty movie because it flopped massively at the box office. The budget for it was $1 million, and the box office total was 100,000.
I had
So
never even heard it in the theaters. I only ever heard of that when it popped on. I think it was Netflix or something like
yeah,
however many years
exactly, because it
ago.
went to Netflix so quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I saw it. I saw it on Netflix with a friend recommended it to me, and then I read the books because it was based on the first book, but there's ever since then there's been 3 more to come out in the series. The fourth one is actually kind of the reason why I wanted to write horror and why I ended up writing this upcoming novella. The other reason I wrote it is because I noticed that a lot of narratives about trans people tend to have them being like miserable with their bodies and like super self-conscious, and they're all depressed and like upset with themselves. It's really it sends a bad message, and I don't like it. It's
Mhm.
annoying. I like how I look. I'm proud of how I look. And I feel like we need more like kind of kick-ass trans people in media if we're going to have like good representation. Same goes for like
Mhm.
any other marginalized group for representation. I'm tired of like only the bigotry and only seeing them being victimized and things like that. So that was the other motivation that kind of went into that. That was a tangent.
No,
John
I
does
like it.
pretty cool.
I do agree. We need to. I like the showing people, trans and queer people, being satisfied, like being just content with kind of how things are and where they're at, not always being, like you said, the victims or showing the hate constantly. Like it's kind of tiring. I think not. I shouldn't say tiring. That gets very draining for people having to watch that, like emotionally. I think.
Yeah. There was a line in the epilogue where the main character says, "Everyone talks about trans victims, no one talks about trans victories," and that's kind of the
Mm.
point. To be a little on the nose about it, I guess. I just noticed the sun is setting and the light's getting kind of dark in my room or in my office area, I guess. I'm going to turn on the light real quick. But probably not. Unless, do you think the lighting is fine?
I can see you good. You're bright and shiny and colorful.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe it's.
Okay, what is the worst movie you've ever seen?
Moulin Rouge. I cannot stand Moulin
Really?
Rouge. I can't do it.
Why?
That's the
Why?
wild thing. I don't even remember because So here's the thing. I was 9 years old and I was at a sleepover for New Year's the first time somebody put it on. And I hated it so much that I left the room. And then 5 years later, I'm at a different sleepover and I'm 14. And somebody says they want to watch Moulin Rouge. And I go, it's been 5 years. Maybe my opinion on it will have changed. We get 5 minutes into the movie and I still hated it and had to leave the room. And that was in
That's
2010.
weird.
14 years ago, so for the life of me I can't even remember why I hated it. I
Huh.
have that such distinct, I don't know what it is, but something about it set me off and I was like, this is cringe, I can't do it, I gotta leave.
Maybe you just don't like Ewan McGregor because he's in like he's the majority of the beginning. I don't know. Well,
He
that
sounds
that is an
familiar.
interesting, huh?
Ewan McGregor, I feel like I've seen that person in other things, and if I disliked him I would know.
He was
So
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
yeah, no, I don't. He doesn't bother me. It was just something
Okay,
about Moulin Rouge.
just Moulin
I
Rouge.
tell you, I know what there are actors that bug me, and I always know when it's them. Like Kurt Russell, something about his eyes freaks me the hell out. Like I can't do it. You know, so like
Okay.
I watched The Thing, and like anytime he had glasses on, it was fine. The moment he took them off, I was like, oh, that's an alien. That's an alien in a human skin suit. Like I don't know what it is.
That is one of my
Something.
all-time favorite movies.
Yeah,
His
I
eye.
love The Thing
I'm gonna
too.
have to
I
watch
loved
it
it.
in a moment.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
have to
No, The
see
Thing is a
what's
great,
going on
great
with my
film. I
eyeball.
loved it. Yeah.
Moulin Rouge. That's okay. Well, that's the first I've ever heard of anybody hating that movie. So I props for being the first there. What kind of horror genre is your favorite, and what is your favorite way to get it?
Honestly, my favorite has to be horror comedy. Um, but I do also really enjoy supernatural and fantasy kind of stuff in general.
Mm.
So, like low fantasy kind of horror, I really enjoy. I read some webtoons that I really enjoy. I tend to read more comics or short stories I find online, or also like animated shorts on YouTube by like independent animators. I go down rabbit holes looking at those sometimes. I also like I don't really like confine myself to a genre as much. I like finding weird horror. But if there's an interesting story behind the way I find something, it kind of doesn't matter what genre it is. Um, so yeah, I don't know. That's probably not like a great answer to that question. I don't really have a
Oh, it
specific
is.
way I search for stuff. I just sort of like anything I stumble across, I'll check it out, and sometimes it'll lead me down a rabbit hole, pretty much.
I think that's the best way. Do you like to read your books? Do you like to listen to them? Do you like prefer visual movies, comic books, that kind of thing,
I
or
prefer
kind of
audio.
everything?
Yeah, I
Audio.
prefer audiobooks. Yeah, especially because I have other stuff I do. Like I have crafts that I do as well. And
Hmm.
so I can do that while I'm listening to an audiobook. I'm actually currently listening to The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. He's one
Ah,
of my
that was
favorite.
good.
Yeah. He's one of my favorite authors. The first book of his I read was We Sold Our Souls, and
That
that
one was
book I
awesome.
loved it. Yeah, it was so
Yes.
good. So I knew that I would enjoy the Final Girl Support Group, and I am. The narrator is very unreliable, and I enjoy those
Hmm.
kinds of stories where it's just sort of dawns on you exactly how out of touch with reality they are. It's
Hmm.
uncomfortable, but on purpose, and that makes it's uncomfortable because it's accurate, to the experience of being paranoid. So yeah, that's kind of how I engage with stuff, is through audiobooks mainly.
What would you like to see more of in horror? What topics do you feel like need more focus or is sort of an area? I think I used the phrase untapped market, but that sounds like too purely capitalistic, and that's not what I was going for. I mean,
Yeah.
like what just needs more? What do you want to see more of?
Yeah, so I think with the release of Get Out, there was like a sort of
Mm.
a rise in social horror, uh,
Hmm.
horror that had something to say, and I don't think that's like I don't think there's any subgenre of horror that is superior, and I don't think making a social commentary in horror is going to make it any better than just like the fun, pulpy stuff. I think both things have their purpose, but I love that there's been a steady rise in social horror. In splatterpunk as well is having kind of a golden age, I would say, or it's getting there.
Hmm.
So I love to see that kind of stuff, because my favorite kinds of stories are stories that explore like the realities of being human, in like with ridiculous premises. Like I think you could even do some kind of social horror comedy. Like I fully believe that's possible. Honestly, I think the film Renfield actually came pretty close to it. It's one of
I
my
have
favorite
not
films of
seen
all
that
time.
one yet. Renfield.
It's fantastic. So it's like I said, realities of being human explored through a very silly premise. In this case, it's the experience of being in a codependent relationship with a narcissist, told
Mm.
through a story about being a familiar for Dracula.
That's
uh,
pretty
yeah,
textbook, pretty spot on.
and it's great because not only is it hilarious, like it's a really funny movie. And again, I love horror comedy, but not only is it hilarious, but also like using Dracula as a metaphor for like a narcissist in that kind of abusive relationship draws attention to exactly how ridiculous the stuff those people say really is, because
Hmm.
now you're showing this person as a literal monster being played by Nicolas Cage. And so when he delivers it in his Nicolas Cage way, you're like, oh wow, yeah, the stuff they say really is just fucking absurd. you know
Hmm.
and it makes you mad on Renfield's behalf, because like you can kind of see how someone would get dragged in by that. I don't know, it's really fascinating. There's a lot to be read into it, again, about just like codependent relationships and stuff like that, and it's really nice to see Renfield overcome that. And also there's just comical amounts of gore, and it's a fun film. It's a really fun film.
I'm gonna add that one. We had that on our list to watch, and I just haven't. I watched the other one with Nicolas Cage about the pig. That was the one I ended up watching
Yeah.
instead, which I thought was
Okay.
interesting. He's been doing a lot more of those like avant-garde sort of artsy pieces, as opposed to
Yeah.
like the crap he was
You know,
putting out. But I think he just said yes to anything at some point.
it's
Like, I
because
just
he was
need the
on the
money.
hook for, yeah, millions of dollars in taxes.
Yeah.
He had some sort of, I don't know, I think he's got like maybe a bit of mental illness, which fine, whatever. But he made some very impulsive decisions, and it led to him having taxes he needed to pay off for decades, which meant he had to take any offer he could get. Going back to the question about the worst movie we've ever seen, the worst movie I've seen that I can remember is Willy's Wonderland, which is a film that Nicolas Cage was in. Have you seen this
I
film?
watched it. Yeah. I actually thought it was pretty fun. He only had one speaking line, and I thought it was perfect.
Yeah, no, I remember watching that, and like I sat through it and I was sitting through it with friends, and there were times when it was funny, but there were times when I was like, I'm in hell. Like, I've died and I'm in hell. Like, this can't be real. This Five
My
Nights at
kids,
Freddy's fan fiction got turned into a
exactly.
film.
That's exactly what it was. And for me, my kids were totally into Five Nights at Freddy's,
Oh
and they would
yeah,
talk about the fanfic when they thought I wasn't like around. So I got to hear about it and then see it, and I was like, God, how are they not getting sued for this? First of all, this is like
wait.
almost.
So it really was based on a fan fiction. That's just like a theory that I had in my head. Like I bet this was based, but no, that
I
it's a
thought
real fan
so,
fiction.
definitely. Yeah. It
Oh, well
felt
now I
it
have to
felt
read
like
it.
it, and it watched. I don't know.
Yeah, now
I
I have
just
to read
felt
it. I
like,
love
how are
reading
they
bad
not
fan
getting
fiction.
sued? Because the author of Five Nights at Freddy's wrote a bunch of books too, and
Yeah,
they are all very similar to everything that was in that movie. So, like I said, I don't know how they didn't get sued, but
yeah,
I am not advocating for Five Nights at Freddy's at all.
no.
That's just don't please don't take that as my go watch that. Um, I lost my spot on here. Okay. What are you currently reading or watching that is not shitty?
I did mention the Final Girl Support Group.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm also reading Unmarked Grave by Karieta Dorsch. She's another author with
Oh,
Unveiling Nightmares. It's
yes.
yeah, it's a pretty gnarly book. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm kind of glad I read it because I not only is like essay kind of a trigger for me, but also bugs. I can't stand bugs.
Oh,
There's big problems with cockroaches here in the Southwest, and
okay.
I've
Yeah.
experienced a lot of that living in a historic home. So those are things that like really squick me out, and those are things that are very present in the prologue, and then the motif of cockroaches is present throughout. And so I think it's great that I'm like challenging myself on that because it's
Mm-hmm.
a story that I can get into, a character that I'm learning to love, and I'm really enjoying getting to know. And there is something to be said about like exposing yourself to things that make you uncomfortable. I think that's one of the great things about horror actually is that it kind of explores those anxieties in a place that is ultimately safe. You can always step back from it.
Right.
So yeah, challenge yourself. Read interesting, cool stuff, and read Unmarked Grave. By the way, I think didn't she have another book come out with Unveiling Nightmares recently?
Yes, she has. Oh, I need the list. She has the collection of short stories and Unmarked Grave. So I think the collection's called the Mitchell County Chronicles or something like that. I will link it in the show notes because that she's got two out right now, and
Yeah, they're pretty
they're
solid.
on my TBR pile. Ever since joining in with this publisher, is like I will never be able to finish it, but
Yeah,
it's not a bad problem because they're all of them have
no,
been amazing. Some of them though, like I think I just finished Crystal's run most recently, and it's a lot. All of these
mhm,
are a lot, and I have to like take a break for a little bit and go into something a little lighter and then
yeah,
come back in for because it's very extreme body like splatterpunk obviously, and
yeah,
I'm like baby splatterpunk. I'm not full-fledged no matter how hard I try. I just can't get there, and it is like so gruesome and terrifying and like visceral that I have to stop for a couple of weeks and
yeah.
go back.
That's my
So
thing is like I can watch stuff with like over the top unrealistic gore in it. I find that
Mhm.
hilarious. It's once it's realistic that I have a problem with it, because then I'm like, that could happen to me.
Mhm.
like, like, that's why I can't, like, I can watch like slasher films or whatever. I can read like Johnny Homicidal Maniac or whatever. Like I can deal with that. But when it's like those based on a true story survival things, like that one where they get trapped in a cave, or like Everest or whatever, those kinds of films freak me
Mhm.
out. I can't stand those, because that's a real thing that happened, and that means it could happen to me, and so I'm gonna have nightmares about it. That's the ones that gives me nightmares. I
Mhm.
don't like
Yeah,
those. 'Cause it also feels exploitative. These people died in this horrible tragedy. You're just making a film out of it. Like, I don't know. It feels weird. I
that
don't like
is
it.
that is essentially the whole serial killer market, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's
But
true. Yeah.
that's it's in all the true crime podcasts and all that stuff. So it
Mm.
has its pros and cons. I would say it started its own, little mini capitalist society within the podcast genres. All
Yeah.
right, where can people find your work or social
Yeah.
media? People to find you.
So I admit, ever since the Twitter explosion, I haven't really been on social media. It's improved my health immensely to do so.
I bet, yeah.
But yeah. You can find my work on Webtoon. Devil Went Down to Vegas is available on Webtoon. You can find me on Blue Sky, Dev Solovey, Twitter, Dev Solovey. Any social pretty much is going to be Dev Solovey, with the exception of my Instagram, which is Dev Solovey Jewelry, because that's where I post all the jewelry that I make. Um, but yeah, so that's generally where you can find me. I'll post a link to my link tree. You can put it in the description. That'll give you
Okay.
links to, yeah, my webcomic, my Etsy, the podcast that I used to do about weird niche internet literature, um, just any of the stuff that I've done so far. So
Okay, cool. So I'll make sure I link those underneath.
mhm.
This week I did not get to read anything, and it makes me very sad. I have not finished anything, so I have read nothing that is not shit. I did watch a few days ago Hell Comes to Frogtown, if you've never seen that. And it is one of the movies that I thought was going to be a piece of shit all the way until the end. And then it ended up being the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. And now I love it. I am like
Okay.
converted in the last 30 minutes of the movie. But don't get me wrong, it's terrible. It's like the worst movie. But I might actually do an episode on it because it was just so much happening
What's
in
it
that.
called again?
Anyway, Hell Comes to Frogtown.
Hell Comes to Frogtown. I might
Yes,
I
it's
might
got
want to
Roddy
watch
Piper in
it too.
it, the wrestler. It's on Amazon Prime. You should watch it.
All right. I
It
happen
is,
to have Amazon Prime, so I can.
it is something. I'd like to hear what you thought if you think about it afterwards. But that's the only thing I've had this week that is not total bullshit, except for this whole interview podcast. Thank you for being on the silly little show with me. And I
Yeah, I
would
had a
love
lot
to
of fun.
hear everybody's comments and questions for you. Hopefully, I'm going to give out the email address for that. And then I'll make sure we have your Linktree information on the bottom.
I
If
do
you
want to
have
make
any recommendations, oh, sorry.
I do want to make
My
one last comment, because we didn't get to talk a whole lot about like the small redeeming qualities of House of the Dead. It has one redeeming quality.
Okay,
One.
what?
The black person does not die first. She's one of
That
the
is true.
last to die.
That is true.
So
But she was also the
at
racist
least,
one. She was like double-edged sword. I do appreciate that is true though.
yeah,
Still,
sometimes I give people the benefit of the doubt when I shouldn't, but so,
I'm not going to
anyway.
repeat what she said because I could not believe. Anyway, if you'd like to recommend an episode or a movie for the next episode, you can email me at simmfwpodcast@gmail.com or find us on Instagram, message us there. And please go out and watch shitty movies so that we can talk about them together. Thank you for being on the
Oh,
show.
can I
What?
say one
No.
more thing?
Yes.
Comment below which of us do you think could be Uwe Boll in a boxing match.
I got the look. I look like I could kick some butt. I think it's going to be me.
I think you could
You
too,
got
but
the
comment
shades.
below.
All right. Bye.
Uh,